Another disaster class from Mike Tomlin. This is his 9th straight season without a playoff win. I find it hard to believe many, if any, teams would hold on to their head coach in that case scenario. But of course, it's Pittsburgh. It's a franchise that has had long tenured head coaches, so we don't really know what will happen. Bryson, I'm curious to hear your opinion, but for me, it's always been the fact that Mike Tomlin has to go, and it's been like that for me for at least a few years now. Tonight, not so much, like we talked about on the live. It wasn't necessarily all on Tomlin this evening, but just a combination of things over the years, and it's become that, just like that Chad Ochocinco quote, death, taxes, a Mike Tomlin knockout in the wild card. It just seems inevitable like this. I think he has to go at this point.
I think the question that I would ask anybody who is entertaining the idea of Tomlin returning for 2026, and that obviously includes the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, is what do you hope or expect to be different that has not been the case over the last 10 years? Like, we were talking during the live that this is 5 straight years where the Steelers have had the highest paid defense in football. And you have a defensive coach like Mike Tomlin, a Super Bowl winner. He's gone to another Super Bowl back in 2010. Ironically lost to Aaron Rodgers. That's got to be the side of the field that carries you. And the Steelers for years, it probably has to do with the steel curtain days of the 70s and some of the great defensive teams of the 90s, and obviously the 2 Super Bowl teams in the 2000s with James Harrison, Polamalu and company. There's a reputation of great defense, but that hasn't necessarily met the reality. Like the Steelers this season were the 26th ranked defense in football. They were the worst fourth quarter defense in the entire NFL. They gave up 10 points per fourth quarter, which is a disaster. If you average that out to 4 quarters, that makes the Cincinnati Bengals defense look like the 85 Bears. I mean, it's a disaster. So TJ Watt had a down year, obviously, with the injury that he suffered, career worst year for him after the contract. But I guess the question is for the Steelers, like I said, what do you expect to be different in 2026? That hasn't been the case for the last 10 years. I just saw a stat that Mike Tomlin now ties Marvin Lewis for 7 consecutive playoff losses. Like that's it. And what's Marvin Lewis's reputation, right?
I feel like over the years, as I've talked to Steelers fans, the amount that have been supporting Tomlin and him coming back, it's kind of diminished. Like every year, I feel like there are less and less, and more people start to realize what's actually going on. And listen, I've been a strong advocate for Mike Tomlin going to the Hall of Fame. I believe he is an incredible NFL head coach, and his resume, don't get me wrong, it is extremely impressive to not have a losing season on your record.
Sure.
That is unbelievable. For the amount he has coached, that is unbelievable. But if I saw the Patriots fire Bill Belichick after he won 6 Super Bowls, pretty much any head coach can be fired, and you can move on from a head coach when you need a culture reset, and that's what I think Pittsburgh needs. I think the Steelers need a culture reset. Almost a decade without a playoff win. No NFL franchise would put up with that. I find it hard to believe even the Jets, a terrible franchise, would hold on to their head coach after that point. I just don't see it. I know Mike Tomlin has the name in Pittsburgh, and he's built some good relationships there. I completely understand. But the fans don't want this mediocrity anymore. At least I don't think they do. I'm sure they don't, because I wouldn't as a Bills fan. If I saw Buffalo doing that year after year, I'd want to see a little bit of playoff success. And I think this I think this loss was absolutely huge for them, because it gives you a little bit more clarity. If you win a playoff game, or if you outright make the playoffs before Week 18, like we talked about, it gets a little bit hairy. It's like, well, Mike Tomlin with Aaron Rodgers, you finally gave him a decent quarterback season. What can he do? But now I think it's pretty clear cut. Like, to go out like that at home and just get pummeled by a good Texans defense, completely understand. But the offense production, like, your defense made enough plays to get the job done tonight. And I just think it's inevitable that the Steelers end up moving on from Tomlin. It's just been too much, in my opinion. And I talked to you about the GM on the live as well, Bryson, but I do want to get your opinion just on that real quick, because I do think Pittsburgh has lacked a lot offensively for years now, and I've been wanting more, whether it's the offensive line, whether it's the weapons there, whether it's the quarterback play. And you can obviously say maybe that's on the offensive coordinator, the play calling, but at the end of the day, I just don't think the talent has been there for a long time, since back with prime Big Ben and AB and Le'Veon Bell, where Mike Tomlin was also losing games to quarterbacks like Blake Bortles and the Jags.
Yep.
Hate to remind you, but like that's how far we're dating back here.
And that's the thing too, is like, it goes back 9 years. The Omar Khan situation. He's been in okay GM. Although if you look at the last few drafts in Pittsburgh, they've left a lot to be desired. And I think you just see when folks make the claim, oh well, the Steelers don't have that much talent offensively. Do the San Francisco 49ers have a lot of talent right now based on what they're doing? I mean, it's Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy making plays here and there, and that's. I mean, you got Juwan Jennings, former high school quarterback, out here throwing touchdown passes in the playoffs. Like, again, I'm not asking Tomlin to be Shanahan because I think that guy's on a different level offensively in terms of what he's doing. But I think you have to ask the questions like, are we asking for something that you are not capable of bringing to the table? Because we've gone through multiple offensive coordinators. As bad as Arthur Smith was, Matt Canada was even worse before that. He might have been the worst OC in football when he was in Pittsburgh. Like, it's whiffs on OC hires. The defensive coordinator hire in Terrell Austin, that hasn't worked whatsoever. Again, they've invested. It's a double whammy. They've invested in the defense at the expense of the offense. So of course the offense is going to be mediocre and the defense is bad. Like, and sometimes, man, the Philadelphia Eagles fired Andy Reid. Like, it's okay. Like, sometimes a Hall of Fame caliber coach in Andy Reid and a great franchise in Philly can go their separate ways. And safe to say both have been better off for that split. And I'm sure the Ravens and John Harbaugh will be the same thing. No reason to believe that wouldn't be Tomlin in Pittsburgh. So it's time, and it's been time.
I love that point, man, because like you said, Andy Reid went off to Kansas City, had a hell of a career in Kansas City with Mahomes, and he's had a ton of success. And obviously, Philly has done their thing as well. But even Harbaugh in Baltimore, real quick, like Harbaugh immediately became the top head coaching candidate.
Yeah.
And Baltimore immediately became the top head coach landing spot. And that's no problem. Like, at least they made a decision and evaluated their situation and said, well, we think coaching at this point has maxed out. And whether or not we become a losing team next year, we think we need a little bit of a reset here. We go all in, didn't work out. Now we got to backtrack a little bit, figure out where we went wrong, and progress. Because just staying in this state of, like, a top 18 pick, top 15 pick every year, but never getting to the point that you can actually make a difference in the draft, that really hurts. And you never get the turnover that you really want at quarterback until you find your guy. And I'm a firm believer that elite quarterbacks aren't necessary for complete success. But for Pittsburgh, it would be nice to have some quarterback production